Let's talk about how we can use an AI to describe the content of an image. A good example would be providing a link to an image and asking AI to identify brand names within it. Once we confirm that the brand names are identified correctly, we can enhance our prompt to request the output in JSON format. This structured data can then be used for further processing in our applications. So our goal is to create our own API that accepts a link to an image along with a prompt message. Behind the scenes, the API will download the image, query AI to describe its contents, and return the response. Let's quickly see this in action, and then I'm going to walk you through step by step how to build it using Node.js and Google Vertex AI API. Let's begin. On this screen, we're using a Postman app to make a request to already working Node.js application. We have two parameters to work with. One is a prompt message for our AI, and the other one is a link to selected image from the internet. I'm selecting the first image from the internet by looking for some car images using Google search. From a random selection, I choose image with 4 different cars. I'm opening image in a separate tab and copy and paste a link to our request as a second parameter. Prompt message for our AI is already filled in, and it says, "Can you recognize a brand names in the image?" When we submit this request, after a few seconds we get response with 4 car brand names. In the next example, I search for popular food chain images. Once I found one, I copy and paste the link to the second parameter in our request. When we submit the request, after a few seconds, we get 6 correct brand names back. In the final example, I search for shoe brands. I select an image with 11 brand logos and I paste the link to our request. When we submit new request, after a few seconds, we get all brands names back. I also want to show we can modify prompt to anything we want. As an example, I'm going to add an extra request to make sure our response values are returned as one string. When we submit this request, we get one long string value back. As you can see, this can be a powerful tool for many applications. In my example, we let AI to identify brand names, but we can change this prompt message to anything we want. We can also train AI model on specific type of images by uploading datasets. We can then let AI to specialize in one category as well as increase accuracy by a lot. So now it's time to see how we can build this in Node.js and using Google Vertex AI API. After creating an empty folder, I'm using command Firebase init functions to initialize an empty Node.js project. There are multiple ways to create Node.js application, but I recommend installing Firebase CLI so that the basic scaffolding is created for you. I'm also prompt with what programming language I use, and I'm selecting TypeScript in most cases nowadays. The setup I've chosen is prepared so that the code can be quickly deployed as a cloud function, which almost immediately can be available on the internet and without complex infrastructure setup. I have some other videos where I show how a simple code can be deployed quickly to a custom domain. Feel free to check my other videos if you are interested in that. This is an empty project we've just created. Let's open index.ts and tidy things up. First, I want to extract image URL and prompt required parameters from client's request. With simplified validation, if one of the parameters is missing, we output error message. Let's quickly confirm what we've done so far is working. In my terminal, I'm running npm run serve, which compiles the script and starts serving local traffic. In my other window, I make a post request with required parameters using Postman. We can also do that in terminal, but I believe things should be more clear using Postman. Going back to our code, what we need to do next is to download the image from URL provided. I'm going to create a new file called process image.ts, where we can decouple the whole part with downloading a file and processing some data. I'm creating a process image constant and I'm exporting it so that we can use it later within index.ts. Our function only takes one parameter and it's called image URL. One way to download the file programmatically is to use Axios library. I'm adding some extra headers because we want to extract and convert some information. Once we download the image, we need to convert it to base64 string because in order to talk to AI, we need to post base64 string in the request. So the goal for this current function we write is to return base64 string and content type of an image. Content type can be read from the response headers when we download the file. Again, here we're downloading the file, converting it to base64 string and reading content type from response headers. Base64 string and content type are return parameters in this function so that later we can use them when we make a request to AI. Inside index.ts, we are simply importing function we've just created and we are expecting two parameters to be returned. In the next part, we need to make a request to an AI. We have now access to converted image into base64 string, content type of that image, and prompt message. Those values will be our parameters in upcoming function. I'm creating a file called askAI.ts, and this function takes three parameters I just mentioned. I'm creating a request body for AI, which is divided into three sections. The contents part is where we enter our prompt message and image details. Other sections can be used as well, but I don't want to go into more details because it would take quite a lot of time to explain everything. All the documentation related to structure of a request body can be found on Google Vertex AI site, link in the description. Next, we need to create a URL we're going to call. We have some dynamic values here, so we need to assign variables and embed them into the URL string. Dynamic values are endpoint, project ID, location, and model ID. When you create your own Google account with access to Vertex AI, you can read those values there. Final part is to make a request to AI using Axios like we did before, but we also need to send access token with our headers. To get access token, we need to execute command via exec-sync function. This command also works when your code is deployed to Google Cloud Function, so it doesn't matter if we execute it locally or when the code is deployed. At the end of this function, we return response value from AI. It has certain structures, so we need to be aware of that and perhaps handle some other cases when we don't get a response, for example. For simplicity, I'm returning response as shown on the screen. Now it's time to import our function we've just created into index.ts. As you can see, our response from askAI function is actual AI response based on a prompt message and link to the image. We simply pass the result as a response to the user who is calling our API. Let's quickly tidy up the code, fix some small typos, and now it's time to check if code is running correctly. I've just run a command npm run serve in a terminal like we did the last time, and we can open the Postman to make a request. I use my previous prompt message from another tab and copy the same link to the image with brand logos. In this case, we get the same results back. In summary, we've built an API which is able to download our image link and ask AI what's in it. We can change prompt message to be anything we want, and the response can be returned as JSON structure. We can use that structure for pretty much anything we want. I hope I sparked some new ideas, And you can use this information for building your own API and trying out your own implementation. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.